When Shen Yu, the general defender of the state, slammed a divorce letter onto my vanity table, the force was so great that the tassels of the hairpins sitting there trembled wildly, just like the undisguised annoyance on his face right now. Su Wangqing, sign it. He looked down at me from above, his black brocade robe still clinging to the chill of the morning drill grounds, as well as a trace of sweet, cloying, and pungent rouge scent that didn't belong to the general's manor. That was Liu Ruyan's scent. I am merely asking you to give up the position of main wife to give Ruyan a proper title, yet you are making such a huge scene. Take a look at these divorce papers. If you really can't come to terms with it, then go back to your maiden home to cool off for a few days. When you've thought it through and are willing to be a co-wife, I will naturally send someone to pick you and Annan up and bring you back to the manor. The charity and arrogance in his tone made it seem as if I, Su Wangqing, would starve to death on the streets if I left his Zhongguo general's manor. He was convinced that I loved him to the bone, convinced that I couldn't leave behind the noble identity of general's lady, and even more so that I couldn't leave our son, Shannon, the only legitimate eldest son of the general's manor. That is why he dares to be so fearlessly brazen in bringing his white moonlight cousin, Liu Ruyan, into the residence, and even uses these divorce papers to humiliate me just to make room for her. He thought I would cry and scream hysterically, like I did the other day, or kneel on the ground and beg him not to abandon the wife who went through hard times with him. Too bad. What he doesn't know is that the high fever from 3 days ago had long since burned that love-brained Su Wangqing to death. The current me is a top-notch surgeon from the modern world, possessing a high-tech medical space bound to my body. For these past 3 days, I stayed behind closed doors under the guise of being seriously ill, not out of heartbreak, but to use the space's storage function to carry out a silent grand move. I slowly raised my eyes, my gaze calmly swept past him, landing on that graceful figure not far behind him. Liu Ruyan was wearing a plain white long dress, leaning against the doorframe looking pitifully frail, tears in her eyes, yet the corners of her mouth hid a smug smile. "Shen Yu, you said it." I didn't cry, didn't even have a shred of hesitation, picked up the pen and decisively signed my name on the divorce papers. Shen Yu froze, his brows knitting slightly, seeming not to have expected me to be so compliant today. A trace of astonishment flashed in his eyes, immediately turning into a cold sneer. "Playing hard to get. Su Wangqing, this trick of yours is too lame. Once you sign, you really will just be a cast-off wife. As you wish." I divided the divorce papers in two, tucked one copy into my sleeve, slammed the other onto the table, and stood up. "Since we are divorcing, I don't want to stay in this general's manor a moment longer. I am taking Annan with me. As for the rest, I, Su Wangqing, am leaving with nothing. I absolutely won't take a single penny from your Shen family." "Good. You've got a backbone." Shen Yu was enraged by my attitude, flicking his sleeve as he said, "Men, prepare the carriage. Send the former madam out of the manor. I'd like to see just how long you can stay tough without the wealth and glory of the general's manor." With that, he didn't even spare me a glance. He turned and pulled Liu Ruyan into his arms, softly comforting the frightened beauty as he strode away. He probably thought that my so-called leaving with nothing was just words spoken out of spite, and that once I hit a wall and suffered hardships outside, I would naturally come back crying to beg him. Watching the backs of the two as they left, the chill in my eyes finally turned into a cold, mocking sneer. Leaving with nothing? Yes, my person is indeed leaving the manor clean. But as for the things that belong to me, I won't leave him even a single needle. Chuntao. I spoke indifferently, calling over my trusted headmaid, who had been waiting on the side with eyes red from anxiety. "Go bring Annan here. Let's go." Chuntao held back her tears and nimbly shouldered a small bundle. Inside were only a few changes of clothes for Annan. She looked at me with worry. "Madam, are we really not taking anything? Those dowries in the storeroom. Don't worry." I touched the spatial mark on my wrist that only I could perceive. the corner of my mouth curling into a meaningful smile. Everything that I should take, I've already taken. Over these past 3 days, taking advantage of the dead of night, I used the space's retrieval function to collect my lavish dowry from the storeroom. Those gold, silver, and jade items, antiques, calligraphy, and paintings, and stored them all in the space's warehouse. Not only that, but as for the valuable ornaments in this bedroom, the rare books in Shen Yu's study that I spent a fortune to acquire, and even the slightly more precious red sandalwood furniture in this room, I had long since used the space to replace them with shoddy goods that looked similar on the outside, but were rotten on the inside, or simply took them directly into the space, leaving behind only a layer of illusory visual facade. This is a form of visual deception. Once I leave the range of this courtyard, those illusions maintained by my spiritual power will instantly collapse. Holding my 4-year-old son, Shenan, I walked out of this cage that had trapped my original body for 5 years. Anand lay on my shoulder, confused and innocent, and asked in a small voice, "Mom, does Dad not want us anymore?" "Anand!" I kissed his soft forehead, my heart filled with determination. "It is not that he doesn't want us, it is that we don't want him anymore. Mom is taking you to a better place, where there are no arguments, only freedom." The carriage was already prepared. It was the shabbiest one in the Shen manor. Without any lingering attachment, I boarded the carriage and left. The wheels rolled on, crushing the past. Just as the carriage drove out of Juke Street, where the general's manor was located, and the moment we completely left the visual range of that residence, I snapped my fingers, deactivating the space's visual masking on those items inside the general's manor. "Goodbye, Shen Yu. I hope you like this grand gift of emptiness that I've left for you." Shen Yu didn't return to the main courtyard until dusk. He had thrown a fit of inexplicable rage at the barracks, his mind constantly flashing back to Su Wangqing's cold, resolute gaze as she signed, which made him feel inexplicably panicked. To suppress this unease, he specially took Liu Ruyan to the capital's largest restaurant, Drunken Immortal Residence, for a nice meal and listened to a ditty, not returning to the manor until the moon was high above the willows. Liu Ruyan snuggled into his arms and said sweetly, "Cousin, sister has a big temper. After staying out for a couple of days and suffering a bit, she'll naturally learn her lesson. When the time comes, you can give her a way out and let her come back as a co-wife. I'll take good care of sister, too." Shen Yu felt soothed hearing this and nodded. "You are the sensible one, after all. That woman, she has just been spoiled by me." Talking and laughing, the two pushed open the doors to the main courtyard bedroom. However, the cozy candlelight they expected didn't light up. What greeted them was a deathly silent darkness and a musty smell like it had been sealed away for ages. "Why aren't the lights on? Where the hell did the servants go?" Shen Yu frowned in displeasure, fumbling to light the candlestick on the table. The faint candlelight flickered once, illuminating the room. The next instant, Shen Yu and Liu Ruyan both froze on the spot, their eyes nearly popping out of their sockets. It was empty. It was completely empty. The rosewood reclining couch that was originally by the window was gone. The priceless jade carvings and gold Buddhas on the curio shelf were gone. The dazzling array of jewelry boxes on the dressing table was gone, and even that authentic painting by a famous master from the previous dynasty hanging on the wall had vanished into thin air. The whole bedroom looked just like it had been swept through by a swarm of the greediest locusts, except for that clumsy canopy bed which was spared because it was simply too big. Actually, it was because I was disgusted that Shen Yu had slept in it, so it was too dirty. Everything else that was worth even a tiny bit of money had totally disappeared without a trace. Even the silver hooks for hanging the bed curtains had been stripped away, leaving only 2 bare ropes swaying desolately in the wind. "What is going on? Did we get robbed?" Liu Ruyan screamed, scared until the color drained from her face. Shen Yu just felt a rush of blood surge straight to the top of his head. He violently dashed toward the wardrobe and pulled open the doors. It was completely empty inside. Not even a single piece of his everyday clothing remained. Su Wan Qing, he growled out this name through gritted teeth, his voice sounding like an evil ghost crawling out of hell. It didn't take any thinking to know. Who else in this estate, besides that mistress who had managed the household affairs for 5 years, had the capability to silently empty out the entire main courtyard within a single day? "Summon come, butler! Where the hell did the butler die off to?" Shen Yu roared. The old butler ran in trembling, and seeing the bare walls, his eyes rolled back, and he almost fainted. "General, this old servant didn't know." Madam did indeed take a few chests away today, saying she was sending some old clothes to the estate to be washed, but I didn't see such a big commotion. Shen Yu looked at the room that looked like it had been ransacked, finding it simply absurd. With so much furniture and decor, even dozens of burly men would take half a day to move it all. How did Su Wangqing do it? To the storeroom? Quick! Go check the storeroom! Shen Yu suddenly thought of something, his expression changing drastically. A whole crowd stormed toward the backyard storeroom. The moment the storeroom doors opened, Shen Yu completely broke down. The storehouse, originally packed to the brim, was now clean enough to race a horse in. Su Wangqing's 10 miles of red dowry from back then, a full 64 loads of dowry, as well as the rewards and spoils of war he had received over the past 5 years, were all gone. All that remained was a wooden box tossed all alone in the corner. Shen Yu walked over with trembling hands and opened the box. Inside there was no gold, silver, or jewelry, only a thick stack of account books. On the very top sheet of paper was a line of elegant handwriting that had practically pierced through to the back. "Shen Yu, all these years you've lived off me, eating my food, wearing clothes I bought, using my money. Now that we're divorced, it is only right and proper that I take back my dowry. As for the messy accounts in this manner, I'll leave those for you to slowly figure out." Shen Yu grabbed that stack of account books and flipped one open at random. The more he looked, the greener his face turned, and the more cold sweat poured down. These weren't just the household expense accounts. They were his, Shen Yu's, lifeline accounts. 3rd year of Xuanwu for the Grand General's birthday, gifted a white jade Guanyin statue, costing 3,000 taels of silver, covered by Madame Su's dowry. 4th year of Xuanwu to smooth relations with the Ministry of War, gifted 5,000 taels, covered by Madame Su's dowry. 5th year of Xuanwu to provide relief for the families of fallen soldiers, distributed 10,000 taels of silver, covered by Madame Su's dowry. Entry by entry, item by item, it was shocking to behold. It wasn't until this moment that Shen Yu discovered with horror that his smooth sailing in official circles these past few years, his reputation for benevolence in the army, and even the respectable facade he maintained for this huge general's manor, were all being single-handedly supported by Su Wangqing using her dowry. He had always assumed his salary was substantial, more than enough to support the family. Little did he know that meager salary of his wasn't even enough to cover the manor's social obligations. It wasn't even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. "General," the accounting room says, "the silver on hand in the manor is gone too." The butler, trembling, twisted the knife. "Next month's wages. I am afraid we won't be able to pay them." With a boom, Shen Yu felt the world spinning. Without Su Wangqing, he not only lost his money, but he also lost the very foundation to stand on in this man, eating capital. "Chase her, prepare the horses. Bring her back to me," Shen Yu roared, his eyes bloodshot, as if he were a madman. "Even if we have to run to the ends of the earth, we must bring that bitch back to me." However, at this very moment, the gates of the capital had long since closed. As for me, I had already taken Annan and transferred to a fast boat prepared long ago, following the Beijing, Hangzhou Grand Canal all the way south, heading straight for the prosperous Jongnan. Half a month later, Jongnan, Linan City. This place is far away from the power struggles of the capital, and the climate is mild, truly a good place to nurture one's health. Using a small portion of the gold bars from my space, I purchased an elegant 3-courtyard residence in the south of the city, then took over a storefront on the busiest street and hung up the signboard Clear Breeze Hall. I didn't rush to open Qingfeng Hall. Instead, while helping Annan adapt to our new life, I refined some self-defense and first aid medicines in my space. Annan really liked it here, without the oppressive atmosphere of the general's manor. The little guy smiled a lot more, and his body grew much sturdier. Opportunity is always reserved for those who are prepared. On this day, I was taking Annan to a tea house to listen to a storyteller, when suddenly a noisy clamor of crying and shouting came from downstairs. "Help! Is there a doctor? Save my young master!" I looked down and saw a crowd surrounding a middle-aged man in rich brocade robes. He was holding a boy of about 7 or 8 in his arms, sweating profusely in panic. The child's face was deathly pale, his hands clutching his lower right abdomen tightly, and his body curled up like a cooked shrimp. Cold sweat had already soaked through his clothes, and he was letting out constant groans of pain. The watching crowd buzzed with discussion. A few passing wandering healers squeezed in to take a look, checked the pulse, then shook their heads and sighed. The pulse is sunken and tight. The abdominal pain is like ringing. This is a case of intestinal abscess. The poison has already attacked the heart. I am afraid there is no saving him. Intestinal abscess was almost synonymous with a terminal illness in ancient times. Once it festered and perforated, triggering peritonitis, the mortality rate was extremely high. Upon hearing this, the middle-aged man's legs instantly went weak, and he slumped to the ground, wailing in despair. "My son, the Chen family has had a single heir for 3 generations. If anything happens to you, Dad won't live either." I recognized the family crest on the hem of that man's robe. It was Squire Chen, the richest man in Linan. "I can't let this chance slip by. Step aside." I held Annan's hand and pushed through the crowd, my voice cold and firm. Squire Chen raised his head with teary eyes to see a beautiful young woman standing before him, exuding an air of authority that was impossible to ignore. "I am a doctor. Let me take a look." Without waiting for his response, I crouched straight down, reached out, and pressed on the child's lower right abdomen at McBurney's point. Ah! The child let out a scream and his body jerked back violently. This was typical rebound tenderness. Acute appendicitis, and it is already festering, with a risk of perforation. I quickly made a judgment, my tone admitting no doubt. We must operate immediately to cut out the rotting intestine. Otherwise, within an hour, he will undoubtedly die. Q. Cut the intestines. Squire Chen and the surrounding commoners were scared silly. Thursday. This cutting open the belly, can a person still live? You must be crazy. Quacks mislead people. That is why they think it is a dead end. I looked coldly at Squire Chen. Your son has 1 foot in the grave already. Do you trust those quacks who told you to prepare for his funeral? Or do you trust me? Someone who dares to take a gamble with you? I'll put my words right here. If I can't save him, I'll pay with my life. My gaze was so assured, coupled with that calm and unhurried demeanor, that a glimmer of hope rose in Squire Chen's despairing heart. All right, as long as my son can be saved, I am willing to give up my entire family fortune. Master Chen gritted his teeth, as if clutching at the last straw. No need to give up your fortune. I just need a clean wing room and absolute quiet. The Chen residence was right nearby, and soon a wing room was cleared out. I made everyone leave, shut the doors and windows tight, and only left Xuntao guarding the door, strictly forbidding anyone from disturbing. After confirming it was safe, with a thought, I directly brought the comatose child into the medical space. The The shadowless lamp lit up, and the operating table automatically adjusted its height. I quickly anesthetized and sterilized the child. For a modern surgical master, an appendectomy is simply an entry-level procedure that I could do with my eyes closed. I cut open the skin, separated the muscles, and found that appendix, which was already swollen, black, and on the verge of perforation. Ligate, remove, suture. The entire process was smooth and fluid, taking just half an hour. To prevent post-op infection, I also injected long-acting antibiotics at the wound site and treated the incision with a healing spray specially made in the space. After doing all this, I put that severed, foul-smelling, blackened appendix into a glass bottle as evidence. Then I took the child back to the bed in the wing room and removed the spatial barrier. The anesthetic hasn't worn off yet, and the child is still in a deep sleep, but his little face, originally twisted from the excruciating pain, has now relaxed. His breathing has become steady and deep, and the high fever on his forehead has miraculously gone down. I opened the door, holding that glass jar containing the rotten flesh in my hand. Outside, Squire Chen and a group of famous doctors from Linan, who had rushed over upon hearing the news, had long been waiting anxiously. Seeing me come out, they immediately swarmed forward. "How is it, my son?" The surgery was a success. I handed him the glass bottle, looking indifferent. "This is the lesion from your son's abdomen, that piece of rotted intestine. The toxic sore is gone. His life is safe. He just needs to rest quietly for 7 days to fully recover." Squire Chen took the bottle with trembling hands, looking at the lump of nauseating black flesh inside, then rushed into the room to check on his son, when he discovered that although his son was not yet awake, his complexion was rosy, and that deadly belly was no longer bloated and hard. The richest man in Linan could no longer control himself, and with a thud, he knelt down before me right on the spot. "Miracle doctor, you really are a miracle doctor. Even if Hua-Tua were alive, he wouldn't be better than this." The surrounding doctors, who were originally waiting to see a joke, were now all dumbfounded, scrambling to check the pulse. "A miracle? The pulse is steady and strong. The toxic heat has subsided. To be able to remove rotting flesh from the intestines, without slicing the belly open, just what kind of godly skill is this?" At that moment, Su Wangqing's name, along with this incredible cut, thoroughly resounded through Linan City. With Squire Chen as a walking advertisement, Qingfeng Hall hadn't even officially opened yet, but the threshold was practically being trampled broken by people seeking medical help. But I didn't treat just any illness. I established a strict appointment system, accepting only 3 cases of difficult and complicated diseases per Dalton Y, and the consultation fees were exorbitant. For the rest of the time, I holed up in the backyard, using the equipment and herbs in my space to start mass-producing urong cream. It was a beauty holy grail combining modern extraction technology with ancient recipes. Its effects on scar removal, whitening, and fading spots were instant. I knew full well that no matter the era, women's money is the easiest to earn. Sure enough, as soon as urong cream was launched, it sparked a buying frenzy among the noble ladies of Linan. My wealth was accumulating at a terrifying speed. However, a tall tree catches the wind. My fame not only attracted the god of wealth, but also attracted a big Buddha I never expected. Late at night, 1 month later, the back door of Qingfeng Hall was gently knocked. The men were dressed in all black, looking cold and stern, carrying a soft sedan chair as they entered my courtyard without a sound. The sedan curtain was lifted, revealing a pale, handsome face that nonetheless held a hint of sickly gloom. Prince Jing Shaoxuanyi, the current emperor's own brother, wielding immense power over the court. Yet due to a rare poison in his system, he has been bedridden for years. I wasn't surprised. From the moment I made a name for myself in Linan, I knew this day would come sooner or later. Miracle, Dr. Su. Shaoxuanyi sat in a wheelchair, his gaze piercing as he scrutinized me. This body of mine, can you treat it? I stepped forward and placed my hand on his wrist. The pulse is thin and choppy, like a floating thread suspended in the air, yet a domineering heat poison is rampaging within. This is typical cold ice fire poison. Two opposing poisons have reached an eerie balance in his body, but they are also eating away at his life force bit by bit. It is treatable. I withdrew my hand, my tone calm. But the poison has entered the marrow. It requires a blood exchange to purge the poison. The process is extremely painful, and it won't be finished in a single day. Xiao Xuanyi's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise, which immediately turned into amusement. As long as I can live, this prince can take it. But Divine Dr. Su, do you know what it means to cure this prince? It means I gain the strongest backer in all of Great Liang. I looked straight into his eyes without shying away. Your Highness, how about we make a deal? Oh, I will cure the poison for you, guaranteeing you 10 years free of worry. In exchange, I need your absolute protection in Linan, and even the entire Jiangnan. No matter who I offend, even if it is a noble from the capital, you must keep me safe. Xiao Xuanyi gave me a deep look, then suddenly smiled. A soul-stirring allure actually exuded from that pale face. Deal. It seems divine physician Su still has some unfinished business in the capital. Smart people know to stop once the point is made. Just like that, Prince Jing moved into the separate courtyard next to Qingfeng Hall, and I became his exclusive physician. Meanwhile, he also became the biggest protective umbrella for my business empire. On my end, life was peaceful, and I was raking in gold every day. But for Shen Yu, far away in the capital, life was a living hell. Without my dowry to plug the holes, the deficit in the general's manor was exposed in no time. The servants couldn't get their monthly wages and quit one by one, and the relationships with colleagues that I had carefully managed quickly cooled off due to Shen Yu's stinginess. Even worse, Liu Ruyan doesn't know the first thing about managing a household. She only knows how to spend money on dolling herself up. Not only did she blow through the last bit of cash the manor had left, but she also offended quite a few noble ladies. In just 2 short months, the once infinitely glorious Zhongguo General's manor had actually become the laughingstock of the capital. Shen Yu finally realized the severity of the situation. He sent people to search for my whereabouts like a madman, even going so far as to use scouts from the army. Finally, the spies brought back news. In Linan, Jiangnan, there was a miracle doctor named Su Wangqing, wealthy enough to rival the nation, and she had a 4-year-old child with her. Good. Very good. Shen Yu looked at the secret letter in his hand, flames of anger burning in his eyes. Taking my son, taking my money, so he thought, and living it up out there. Su Wangqing, since you don't want dignity, then don't blame me for being ruthless. He immediately requested leave from the emperor, gathered a squad of personal guards, and traveled day and night, heading straight for Jiangnan, seething with murderous intent. And at this moment, I was sitting on the 2nd floor of Qingfeng Hall, sipping on premium Longjing while watching the long line downstairs, lining up to buy Yurong ointment. Madam, Chuntao ran up, hurriedly, her face a bit pale. The scouts reported, Shen Yu. General Shen has entered the city with his troops, and is heading straight here. I put down the teacup, a cold sneer curling the corner of my mouth. Just in time. It is time to settle some scores once and for all. Bang! The front door of Qingfeng Hall was kicked open, the heavy wooden planks letting out a pained groan as splinters flew. The originally bustling hall instantly fell silent, as the commoners lining up for treatment and medicine backed away to the sides in terror. Shen Yu stood at the entrance clad in black iron armor, covered in dust from the road, his face filled with savage hostility. Behind him followed 2 columns of fully armed personal guards, long sabers unsheathed and glinting coldly, instantly surrounding the entire medical hall so tightly that not a drop of water could trickle through. This didn't look like he was here to find his wife. It was clearly a raid to wipe out bandits. Su Wangqing, get the hell out here! Shen Yu let out a violent roar, shaking the dust right off the rafters. His eyes were crimson and bloodshot. The past 2 months of being run ragged and rushing long distances had long since worn away his poise as a general, leaving nothing but the humiliated rage of having been played. I slowly walked down the stairs from the second floor, dressed in cyan brocade with my hair pinned high, adorned only by a simple white jade hairpin, yet looking far more radiant and commanding than the noble lady laden with jewels back at the general's manor. General Shen, such an imposing air. I stood at the top of the stairs, looking down at him, my tone as indifferent as water. Are you here to seek treatment, or to cause a scene? Seeing me like this, Shen Yu's pupils constricted sharply. The Su Wangqing in his memory was always submissive and timid. When had she ever shown such a sharp, arrogant side? It made him feel she was a stranger, and even more so, he felt a rage at being provoked. Come back with me. Shen Yu stepped forward, pointed at me, and roared. Are you done making a scene, parading our son around in public like this? You've utterly disgraced the Shen family. Disgraceful, I scoffed, walking slowly down the stairs. Shen Yu, I've already signed the divorce papers. I am now the head of the Su family, not a wife of your Shen clan. I earn money on my own merit and save lives with my medical skills. What is there to be ashamed of? On the contrary, General, you leading troops to trespass on a private residence and oppress the people. Is this the bearing of a general of great Liang? Shen Yu choked on his words at my retort, then immediately sneered. Divorce papers? I didn't file them with the authorities, so they don't count. Alive, you belong to the Shen family. Dead, you are a ghost of the Shen family. Men, take the young madam and the heir back. If anyone stands in the way, kill them without mercy. The personal guards behind him immediately stepped forward, radiating murderous intent, ready to strike. I'd like to see who dares. I let out a sharp shout, and suddenly a scalpel gleaming with cold light appeared in my hand, the sharp blade spinning nimbly at my fingertips. But faster than me was the shadow of a whip tearing through the air. Snap! The 2 personal guards charging at the front screamed as they were lashed viciously by the whip and sent flying, crashing heavily to the ground. The armor on their chests actually split open. Everyone was shocked and turned their heads to look. The curtain to the inner chamber of Qingfeng Hall was lifted, and Xiao Xuanyi was pushed out in a wheelchair by a grim-faced guard. He was toying with a long black whip in his hand, his expression languid, yet exuding a royal pressure that made one's knees go weak. Shen Yu, this is Linan, not your northern capital barracks. Xiao Xuanyi spoke indifferently, his voice not loud, yet it exploded like thunder in Shen Yu's ears. Touching my people on my turf, how many heads do you have to lose? Jing, your highness, Prince Jing. Shen Yu's face instantly turned deathly pale. His legs went weak, and he nearly fell to his knees. He never expected that this living Enma, who was rumored to be critically ill and recuperating in the capital, would actually appear here. And listening to this tone, he is actually backing Su Wangqing up. This general didn't know your highness was here. I've offended you greatly. Shen Yu hurriedly bowed, cold sweat instantly soaking his back. Offense. Xiao Xuanyi sneered, his gaze scraping over Shen Yu's face like a blade. Leading troops to besiege this prince's savior. You call that an offense? That is treason. Treason. Such a heavy charge was enough to execute 9 generations of his family. Shen Yu trembled with fear and fell to his knees with a thud. Your Highness, please see the truth. I absolutely had no such intention. I just came to retrieve my runaway wife. Wife Xiao Xuanyi raised his eyebrows at me. Miracle Dr. Su, are you his wife? Answering your highness. I walked down the last step and stood beside Xiao Xuanyi, exchanging a glance with him, full of tacit understanding. I have long since divorced General Shen. The divorce papers in hand are proof, Signed and sealed. All ties were severed long ago. Did you hear that? Xiao Xuanyi turned to look at Shen Yu, his eyes full of mockery. He doesn't acknowledge you, General Shen. If you dare keep pestering, this prince wouldn't mind cleaning up the house for my imperial brother. Shen Yu knelt on the ground, fists clenched deathly tight, fingernails digging into his palms, blood dripping down. Humiliation. Unprecedented humiliation. Denied publicly by his ex-wife. Humiliated publicly by royalty. At this moment, his pride was being trampled underfoot and repeatedly crushed. Just then, a shrill female voice suddenly shattered this oppressive atmosphere. Your Highness, I beg your Highness to uphold justice. A woman came stumbling down from the carriage behind Shen Yu. It was none other than Liu Ruyan. She was dressed all in white, her hair disheveled, her face as pale as paper, yet she protected her slightly bulging belly with both hands, crying pitifully as she shuffled on her knees before Xiao Xuanyi. Your Highness, sister can deny cousin, but she can't deny the Shen family's flesh and blood. Liu Ruyan raised her head, eyes flashing with a vicious light, pointed at me and wailed, Sister, I know you hate me for stealing cousin's favor, but every mistake is my fault. The child is innocent. I am already 3 months pregnant with cousin's flesh and blood. I beg you, for the sake of the Shen family line, come back with us. Even if you send me and the child away to the estate, as long as the child gets a proper status, that is enough. With her crying and making such a scene, the originally one-sided public opinion instantly underwent a subtle change. The onlookers began whispering amongst themselves. Turns out she is pregnant. That makes things tricky. It is the Shen family seed, after all. For divine Dr. Su to block the legal wife from going back like this, it is indeed a bit heartless. This Madame Liu looks quite pitiful too, seeing as she is even willing to go to the estate. When Shen Yu heard this, his eyes, which had been dead as ash, instantly lit up. That is right, the child. This is his last chance to turn the tables. He immediately straightened up, looking at me with a face full of anguish. Wang Qing, did you hear that? Ruyan is pregnant. Of the 3 unfilial acts, having no heir is the worst. You can hate me, but you can't let the Shen family's own flesh and blood be left out on the streets. Come back with us. As long as you nod, this child will be registered under your name once it is born, and you'll still be the only official wife. He thought this was an enormous favor, looking at this pair of scumbag and bitch chiming in with each other right in front of me. I felt nothing but utter absurdity and disgust. Pregnant, my gaze was sharp as a knife, instantly locking onto Liu Ruyan's bulging belly. As an experienced surgeon, coupled with the scanning assistance from my space, I could tell at a glance that there was indeed a problem with her belly, but it definitely wasn't a pregnancy. You say you are pregnant? I slowly approached Liu Ruyan, the corners of my mouth curling into a smile that would make anyone shudder. Oh, of course. Liu Ruyan felt a bit guilty under my gaze and subconsciously shrank back. This pulse was taken personally by Dr. Zhang of Huichun Hall in the capital. It is absolutely a pregnancy pulse. Is that so? I suddenly reached out and grabbed her wrist. Liu Ruyan tried to struggle, but found my grip shockingly strong, immovable like an iron pincer. Since it is a pregnancy pulse, then let me, this miracle doctor, catch some of the good luck too. I closed my eyes, my fingertips feeling that eerie, throbbing pulse. The slippery pulse is indeed there. However, that chaotic, floating, and rootless aura of death in the pulse could not escape my eyes. 3 seconds later, I opened my eyes, let go of her hand, took a handkerchief from my bosom, wiped my fingers with disgust, and then casually tossed it on the ground. Su Wanqing! What do you mean? Liu Ruyan was enraged by my actions. I turned around, facing all the commoners, facing Shen Yu, facing that high and mighty Prince Jing, my voice crisp and loud, declaring word by word, Congratulations, General Shen. Congratulations, General Shen. Shen Yu froze for a moment, his face lighting up with joy. You admit it? Admit what? I laughed so hard, tears were almost coming out, pointing at Liu Rian's belly. Admit that you are about to happily become a daddy. Oh no, is it happily becoming a tumor daddy? What? The whole crowd was in an uproar. Miss Liu here indeed has something growing in her belly, and it is growing pretty fast. I stopped smiling, my expression turning cold and stern as ice. But this isn't a baby at all, but rather an extremely dangerous abnormality. A ghost fetus, molar pregnancy. This thing looks like grapes, growing in heavy clusters, surviving by sucking the mother's essence and blood. If it isn't expelled in time, within 2 months, the mother will bleed from her 7 orifices, her belly will burst, and she will die. When the time comes, what comes out will be nothing but a puddle of stinking, rotten flesh and bloody water. Shen Yu, is this the Shen family flesh and blood you've been longing for? A pile of rotten meat? As my words fell, the entire medical hall fell into a deathly silence. Liu Ruyan's face instantly looked worse than a corpse. She clutched her belly while trembling and screamed, "No, you are talking nonsense. You are jealous of me. You want to kill my child. Don't you know perfectly well yourself whether it is nonsense?" I pressed closer step by step. For these past 3 months, haven't you been vomiting nonstop? Haven't you often had brown blood stains down there? Isn't your abdominal bloating and pain abnormal, far exceeding normal pregnancy reactions? Every question was like a heavy hammer smashing into Liu Ruyan's heart. She backed away step by step, her eyes filled with terror. Because I hit the mark on everything. Since you don't believe it, then let's verify it on the spot. I whipped around to look at Xiao Xuanyi. Your Highness, lend me a guard skilled in acupoint techniques. Just a massage on a few major acupoints on her abdomen will stimulate this ghost fetuses to naturally expel foul matter. Then the truth will be out. Xiao Xuanyi's lips curled slightly, his eyes full of the amusement of watching a show. Granted, granted. Xiao Xuanyi's single, understated word was like a verdict from the king of hell. The cold-faced guard behind him stepped out in response. His figure flashed like a phantom, and in an instant, he was right in front of Liu Ruyan. No, don't. You can't do this to me. I am pregnant. I've done a great service for the Shen family. Liu Ruyan screamed in terror, hands guarding her belly as she desperately backed away, looking so wretched it was as if we were a pack of demons about to cut her open alive. Shen Yu was also shocked back to his senses by this sudden turn of events, and subconsciously tried to stop them. Stop! What are you doing? What if you hurt the child? General Shen Xiao Xuanyi idly fiddled with the jade thumb ring in his hand, his voice drifting over with a chill. Do you distrust miracle Dr. Su's skills? Or do you think you know medicine better than the divine physician? If it really is a child, a little massage will only settle the fetus. If it isn't, then this prince would like to see just what exactly this treasonous pregnancy pulse really is. The moment the words, "deceiving the sovereign," were spoken, Shen Yu's foot, which had just stepped out, froze abruptly in place. He didn't dare to gamble, much less act rashly in front of Prince Jing. The look he cast at Liu Ruyan held not just worry, but an added trace of suspicion. In that moment of hesitation, the guard had already made his move. His fingertips moved like the wind, unerringly tapping several times on the major acupoints of Qihai and Guanyuan on Liu Ruyan's abdomen. The force was light, but extremely skillful. Exactly the traditional Chinese medicine technique for inducing vomiting and expelling impurities. Ah! Liu Ruyan let out a short, miserable shriek, her whole body violently curling up, her face instantly turning from white to green. Immediately after, a teeth-setting gurgling sound came from her belly, as if something was churning furiously inside her. The next instant, she felt a sudden heat below, and a stream of incomparably foul, blackish, red bloody water flowed down her plain white skirt, instantly staining the ground red. In that shocking pool of blood, visibly mixed in, were countless clumps of rotten flesh, transparent as blisters and shaped like grapes, slowly squirming with the blood and emitting a nauseating stench. What the hell is this? The onlookers were so terrified they kept backing away, and some threw up right on the spot. Oh my God, it really is rotten flesh shaped like grapes. Divine Dr. Sue was right. It is a ghost fetus. It is too horrible. How is this a child? It is clearly a monster. Shen Yu stared fixedly at the pile of filth on the ground, struck dumb as if by lightning, his body stiff as a stone. The stench drilled into his nostrils and shot straight to his brain, shattering the last shred of wishful thinking in his heart. There was no child. There really was no child. The Shen family, flesh and blood, he treasured, and took such pride in turned out to be nothing more than a pile of nauseating, rotten flesh. Number, impossible. This isn't true. Liu Ruyan collapsed in the pool of blood, looking at the thing she had expelled, her expression crumbling. She grabbed the bloody water on the ground like a madwoman and tried to stuff it back in. My child is still in my belly. This is just a bit of bleeding. Doctor, call a doctor. I watched this scene coldly, slowly stepped forward, and looking down from above, handed her a pure white handkerchief. Liu Ruyan, it is time to wake up. My voice was calm, devoid of any emotion. To fight for favor. You concealed your condition even though you were unwell long ago, and even bribed a quack doctor to pass off a sickness as a pregnancy. You don't love Shen Yu. You are using his life and the Shen family's reputation to pave a road of no return for yourself. Now that the truth is out, what else do you have to say? Liu Ruyan raised her head trembling. That once delicate and moving face was now twisted like an evil ghost. She stared dead at me, her eyes filled with overwhelming hatred. Su Wangqing, it was you. You did something. It must have been you. Enough. A thunderous shout interrupted her mad ravings. Shen Yu strode forward, his eyes bloodshot, his whole body emanating a violent aura. He grabbed Liu Ruyan by the collar and lifted her off the ground, his voice terribly raspy. You lied to me. You've been lying to me all along. See, cousin. Liu Ruyan was scared witless by the look in his eyes, trembling all over. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to bear you a child so badly. Want to bear me a child with this pile of rotten meat? Shen Yu laughed out of extreme rage, the sound shrill and desolate. For you, I drove away my wedded wife. For you, I became the laughingstock of the capital. For you, I brought troops here today, like a buffoon, making a complete fool of myself. Liu Ruyan, you ruined me. You ruined the Shen family. Smack. A resounding slap whipped viciously across Liu Ruyan's face. She let out a scream and was sent flying, crashing heavily onto the ground. Blood oozed from the corner of her mouth, and half her face swelled up instantly. This slap severed all affection between the two, and also shattered the illusion of that perfect white moonlight in Shen Yu's heart. The entire scene was dead silent. No one sympathized with Liu Ruyan. Everyone looked at this pair of men and women tearing into each other like they were looking at garbage. Shen Yu gasped for breath, turned around, and looked at me with eyes full of complex emotions: guilt, regret, pleading, and a trace of bewildered confusion. Wangqing. He reached out a trembling hand, seemingly wanting to grab me. I was deceived. I didn't know. I really didn't know. Now you know. I took a step back, avoiding his hand, my gaze cold as frost. General Shen, the show is over, and it is time for this farce to end. Take your cousin and get out of my sight. From this day forward, you go your way and I'll go mine. Shen An takes the surname Su. He has nothing to do with you anymore. No, you can't. Shen Yu panicked, completely panicked. He knelt before me with a thud. At this moment, he could no longer care about any dignity as a general. Wangqing, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please go back with me. As long as you go back, I'll divorce Liu Ruyan immediately. I'll kick her out of the manor. From now on, there will be only one mistress in the manor, and that is you. I'll hand over full financial control to you. I swear, I'll listen to everything you say from now on. He thought he was winning me back, little knowing that this groveling, tail-wagging display would only make me even more nauseous. Shen Yu. I looked down at him. No hatred in my eyes, only pity. Do you still not understand? I am leaving you not just because of Liu Ruyan. It is because of your selfishness, incompetence, and stupidity. You need me only because I can manage the household for you, fill the deficits, and pave the way for you. You never loved me. You loved your own hypocritical facade. You regret it now, not because you love me, but because you realized that without me, you are nothing. I, Su Wangqing, have no use for such cheap affection. After saying this, I didn't spare him another glance and turned to walk towards Xiao Xuanyi, who had been quietly looking on. Your Highness, thank you for lending a hand today. Qingfeng Hall still needs to do business. These people. A satisfied smile curled the corners of Xiao Xuanyi's mouth, and he waved his hand lightly. Since Divine Physician Su has spoken, then clear the place. Men, invite General Shen and this Miss Liu out of Linan City. If they dare take another step inside, punish them for treason. Yes. 2 rows of guards responded in unison, their momentum shaking the heavens. Shen Yu wanted to say more, but was grabbed on both sides by 2 guards and dragged out like a dead dog. Liu Ruyan had already passed out cold, tossed onto the carriage like a tattered sack. Su Wangqing, you'll regret this. You'll definitely regret this. Shen Yu's despairing screams drifted further and further away, finally fading at the end of the street. I stood on the steps of Qingfeng Hall, watching that wretched retreating figure, and the stone that had weighed on my heart for so long finally shattered completely. Do I regret it? This is the real Su Wangqing. Shen Yu's farce not only failed to ruin my reputation, but instead became a golden signboard for Divine Dr. Su. After this battle, all of Linan knew that Divine Dr. Su not only possessed God, like medical skills, and could see through a ghost fetus at a glance, but also had His Highness Prince Jing as a backer, making even the current great general eat humble pie. Qingfeng Hall's business became even more explosive, and along with it, the price of Yurong ointment doubled. Yet supply still couldn't meet demand, and I finally had the time to calm down and treat the poison for Xiao Xuanyi. This was a long and painful process. His poison had already entered the marrow. I had to first use acupuncture to seal his heart meridians, then combine it with the special antidote I refined from my space to force out the poisonous blood bit by bit, and finally perform a blood exchange treatment. Every time I applied the needles, Xiao Xuanyi had to endure severe pain like 10,000 ants devouring his bones. But he never let out a single groan, only biting down hard on the cloth, sweat soaking through his heavy clothes, while those deep eyes remained clear, closely following my busy figure. On this day, the treatment ended. I put away the silver needles, looking at his pale face that was gradually regaining some color, and handed him a cup of warm water. Your Highness's endurance, even Guanyan Chang scraping his bones to cure poison, was nothing more than this. Xiao Xuanyi took the water and smiled weakly. Although his voice was hoarse, it revealed an unprecedented sense of ease. Because I know, with you here, I won't die. He said those words extremely softly, yet they were like a feather gently tickling the tip of my heart. After spending all this time together, we've long since moved past a normal doctor-patient relationship. He is my rock, and I am his lifesaver. We argue during medical discussions and complement each other in business strategies. I admire his resourcefulness and stoicism, and he marvels at my independence and talent. A feeling I've never known before has quietly sprouted amidst the needles and medicine. and in the mornings and evenings spent facing each other. By the way, Xiao Xuanyi put down his cup and suddenly said seriously, news came from the capital. Shen Yu fell gravely ill after returning. The emperor was furious, citing the crimes of failing to discipline his household and mobilizing troops without authority. He stripped him of his title and demoted him to a commoner. Liu Ruyan died on the way back to the capital because her ghost fetus condition couldn't be cured. I listened without a ripple of emotion in my heart, as if I were hearing a story about a stranger. The wicked get what they deserve from heaven, I said faintly. It is just a pity about that child, who was literally dragged down by her into a stillbirth. Not only that. Xiao Xuanyi looked at me, a glint of slyness flashing in his eyes. The emperor has heard of your exploits in Lenan, especially that miraculous skill of cutting open the body to remove rot, and intends to summon you to the palace to treat the Empress Dowager's stubborn illness. I frowned. Enter the palace. That was another, bigger cage. I won't go. I refused decisively. I only wish to remain in the Jianggu, not enter the court. I knew you'd say that. Xiao Xuanyi smiled, pulling a glittering golden token from his sleeve and placing it on the table. So I turned it down for you, and I asked my imperial brother for this gold medallion of immunity, appointed you Greet Liang's first national physician, and granted you permission to practice medicine freely among the people, exempt from any government conscription. I looked at that token in shock, then looked at him. This isn't just a token. This is true freedom, the most precious promise he has given me. Xiao Xuanyi, you, Wanqing. He suddenly interrupted me, reaching out to hold my hand on the table. His palm was warm and dry, with a thin layer of calluses, traces left from years of wielding weapons. Shen Yu is blind, mistaking a pearl for a fisheye. But I am not. You gave me this life. I want to give the rest of it to you, too. Be my princess. No, be my only wife. I promise you a lifetime of just the two of us. I promise you the wide ocean for fish to leap, and the high sky for birds to fly. You will still be divine Dr. Su of Qingfeng Hall, the world-renowned boss Su, and I will just be the Xiao Xuanyi behind you. His eyes were deep with affection and burning with passion, so sincere that it was impossible to refuse. At that moment, I heard the sound of my own heart racing. I, Su Wanqing, traveled here from the modern era. I've experienced betrayal and divorce. I had already sealed my heart, wanting only to focus on my career. But in this world, there is always someone who will see through your strength, ache for your past, and then tell you in the gentlest way. You don't have to work so hard. You can try to rely on someone for a bit. I looked at him, turned my hand to clasp his, and the corners of my mouth lifted into a brilliant smile. Is your Highness proposing? Without even a betrothal gift? Isn't that a bit too hasty? Xiao Xuanyi froze for a moment, then burst into laughter, his voice hearty and vibrating in his chest. Betrothal gift? Half of this great Liang Empire, once this prince conquers it in the future. I'll give it all to you as a betrothal gift. How about that deal? 3 years later, Linan City was in an uproar again. 10 miles of red trousseau lined the entire long street. Only this time, it wasn't Su Wanqing leaving with her dowry, but Prince Jing, Xiao Xuanyi, marrying this legendary miracle doctor princess with the full rights of a prince. Over these 3 years, the poison in Xiao Xuanyi's body had been completely cleared, and his health was fully restored. He returned to the imperial court, reorganized the administration with thunderous methods, and assisted the new emperor in ascending the throne. The old emperor abdicated to become the retired emperor and recuperate, becoming the regent in the truest sense. And my Qingfeng Hall had long since opened in every prefecture of Great. On the day of the wedding, Annan wore a festive little red robe and served as the bed-rolling boy. Now 7 years old, he is bright and sharp. Not only does he learn medicine from me, but he also learns martial arts from Xiao Xuanyi. versed in both literature and martial arts. He is long past being that timid child from back then. The wedding night. Xiao Xuanyi lifted my veil, looking at my flushed cheeks under the candlelight, his eyes filled with stunned admiration and deep affection. Ching Ching, you are finally mine. He bent down to kiss me, gentle and lingering. That night, the red candles flickered, and the room was filled with the breath of spring. Life after marriage wasn't as restrictive as I had imagined. Xiao Xuanyi kept his promise and never limited my freedom. Wherever I wanted to go to provide free medical treatment. He went with me when I wanted to research new medicines. He searched the world to collect rare and exotic herbs for me, occasionally returning to the capital for official duties. I was the most honorable princess consort to the regent in the city. Even the empress had to show me some deference. Those who once mocked me as a cast-off wife now could only kneel at my feet, looking up at my glory. As for Shen Yu, I heard that after he was demoted to a commoner, having no useful skills and spending money like water, he soon squandered his family fortune and ended up a beggar. On a snowy, windy night, he was beaten to death in the street while fighting for a stale steamed bun, his body wrapped in a straw mat and thrown into a mass grave. When I heard this news, I was at our villa in Zhongyan, teaching Annan to identify medicinal herbs. Mother, is that person dead? Annan raised his head, his eyes clear without much sadness. Dead. I patted his head. He got what he deserved. A maturity beyond his years came through in Annan's childish voice. If it weren't for father and mother, Annan probably would have died long ago. The royal father he speaks of is Xiao Xuanyi. Over these past 3 years, Xiao Xuanyi has treated Annan like his own, teaching him riding and archery, and the ways of governing. Annan has also long since changed how he addresses him, genuinely treating him as a father. Annan is right. Xiao Xuanyi had walked over at some point, gently hugging me from behind and draping a cloak over my shoulders. Let the past be the past. Cherishing the one in front of you is what matters most. I lean in his arms, looking at the medicinal herbs blooming throughout the courtyard, watching my son running and laughing not far away, my heart filled with peace and contentment. I once thought that transmigrating was a disaster. Now, I realize, it was a rebirth. I not only saved myself and my son, but in this unfamiliar time and space, I found my true self, and a love between equals where we support each other through thick and thin. This is my Su Wangxing's life as a big heroine.